Welcome everyone, wherever you are in the world. Um, we're going to start sitting for 15 minutes and while other people join us to sit as well. So we'll start off with the bell. Thank you, Jessica. So would
Would
you
you
please say
please say
after
after
me the
the
verse of the
verse of
book?
the
Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Welcome, everybody. I think we have a problem with the bell this evening, and Jessica's tried to make it work. So we won't need one, I think, until the end of our meeting together.
We'll see if I can get it by then, Josh.
Okay, no worries if you can't. So when you are going to lead inquiry, you enter the green room, or perhaps more appropriately the lobby of the inquiry temple at about 7:10, and you're greeted, as I was today, by Jessica, and it was lovely to be greeted and to be supported to my seat in the temple. And something settled in me while we were talking. So that's what happens before inquiry. And I was thinking that it would have been great if our conversation had been recorded, because it itself was very beautiful. So thank you very much, Jessica, for supporting me to settle. And Jessica said it's about 75 degrees Fahrenheit where she is, and it's maybe about 38 here in the northern UK. And I'm just aware of how many time zones we exist in, and how our body clocks are different because of our location in the northern hemisphere, and the kind of wonder of that. When I think of you all, I have this kind of inner map of you across the northern hemisphere, and it's wonderful to actually see you appear this evening. So, John Dado Laurie said, "It is the direct pointing to the mind that is the teaching of Zen. Everything else is decoration. It is the direct pointing to the mind that is the teaching of Zen. Everything else is decoration." And I wonder how your mind is right now. If you turn towards your mind, I wonder how it is. How are you taking care of it? How are you relating to it? And I want to start today with something I included in my last inquiry talk. It's stayed with me like something you find under a stone or on a country walk, and you put it on your table, and it's still there. It's a fragment of a conversation between James Taylor, a British musician, and Jules Holland. And Taylor speaks about how Beethoven often stays in a similar place, exploring again and again a series of notes. He knew, Taylor said, when to move and when to stay. This is the practice of prolongation, the act or state of making something longer or extending it. And of course, this is one of the aspects of Zazen, the practice of prolongation, making something longer or extending it. And when to come, when to move, and when to stay. What a great question. It's the one I've been exploring in creating this reflection for you today. And for me, it's not about Beethoven or even about music, but what happens in my mind when I hear that statement. I've offered 2 talks recently, and following being with you today, I'm preparing another one for an in-person day on Saturday. And there is a part of me, perhaps the perfectionist, that has been putting some pressure on me to offer something different and new and fresh to you today. And I'm grateful that nothing arose in response to that pressure, because it has allowed me to rest in what I'm really drawn to explore. It's allowed me to rest in my question, to stay like Beethoven in a similar place, exploring again and again a series of notes. Trudy and I enjoy watching 2 British arts programmes, Portrait Artist of the Year and Landscape Artist of the Year. During the programme, the judges line up the participants' submissions, paintings, and their paintings completed during the competition. What is evident is that each artist is unique in their areas of interest and in how they are explored and expressed through shape and colour and texture. Perhaps you could say that each artist has a particular question they continue to explore again and again. And in the case of the portrait artists, one judge mused that they're actually painting themselves. And in the spirit of painting, in 2001, the wonderful art critic, novelist and poet John Berger wrote of Van Gogh, "He is loved," I said to myself in front of the drawing of the olive trees, because for him the act of drawing or painting was a way of discovering and demonstrating why he loved so intensely what he was looking at. And what he looked at during the 8 years of his life as a painter belonged to everyday life. Perhaps you could say that if Van Gogh had a question, it would be, how can I discover what it is to love so intensely? How can I demonstrate that love? I've recently been rereading the novels of Virginia Woolf, and as you may know, there's no strong narrative in them. That's not her interest. Her interest isn't in telling stories. Her interest is exploring the contents of her mind. And so she knows exactly what she wants to explore. And in the early 20s, when she was writing, this was very radical, because there's no particular storyline to follow. Suzuki Roshi once asked, "What is your inmost request?" Perhaps responding to this starts with creating a space to allow our question, to find us. How do we allow our questions to find us? Do you have a sense of your question, perhaps even non-verbally, in your body? What themes do you circle around day after day in your mind? If you think about your mind today, just today, what themes have you circled around and around constantly? Perhaps somewhere in there is embedded your question. In Dogen's collection of koans, case 44, the case is, Guishan sat on the teaching seat. A monastic came up and said, "Master, please expound the Dharma for the assembly." Guishan said, "I have already exhausted myself for you." And the monastic vowed. So you have a situation here with an old and revered teacher being asked very politely by a monastic a kind of typical question. "Master, please expound the Dharma for the assembly." And maybe he sighs and said, "I have already exhausted myself for you." Can you recognize this in your own life sometimes with situations you've been in? I have already exhausted myself for you. So perhaps Guishan is weary. Perhaps he's said all he can say in his long life to the assembly. And perhaps he realizes that any Dharma talk is only partial. Whatever he says is actually only partially pointing to a truth. Kuan Franz has written a commentary on this, which I find really intriguing. And I mentioned it last time, but I'm coming at it from a different angle today. He said most teachers are just trying to say a couple of things. They're trying to describe something that they've tasted, and the depths of the teaching over time is not that they keep adding to it. It's not that it keeps getting bigger and bigger in scale, but simply they just keep finding new ways to describe this taste. And perhaps we as students are doing the same thing as the teachers that Kuan Franz is describing. We actually have a couple of things that we really, really keep focusing on. We really keep exploring, either consciously or unconsciously. And it's not that we keep adding to it. It's not that it keeps getting bigger and bigger, but simply we just find new ways to describe this state. He goes on to say, there is not one moment in which a student asked for an explanation of Zen and the teacher gave a straightforward answer and the problem was solved. Not one. And I'm emphasizing his voice when he said it. Not one. And it's not for the lack of trying. If there is an answer, if there is something that breaks someone through to a new way of holding this same moment, isn't that beautiful? A new way of holding this same moment. It never comes in the form of a clear explanation. It usually arrives in the intensity of the question. At best, serves as encouragement in someone else's question. A talk at best serves as encouragement in someone else's question. In response to the exercise of lining up paintings in a row, as happened in the art competition, I kind of lined up some of my talks. And not surprisingly, like the painters, I see I'm drawn to explore just a few particular themes in my own particular way. And in some ways it was really surprising, and in another way really unsurprising. I'm drawn again and again to say some of the same things in a different way. And it's no surprise that I chose Cultivating the Silent Mind as the title for our in-person day on Saturday, and to explore Case 21 from the Book of Serenity with the line, "You should know there is one who is not busy." So I continue to explore again and again a series of notes, going deeper each time, hopefully, with my questions embedded in my practice, even if consciously I don't know what the question is. It's like when we were children, we loved to hear a story again and again and have it acted out sometimes. I used to ask my mother repeatedly to be the witch in Snow White and peer through the window with the rosy poison apple until I could stand it no longer. My twin grandsons keep rescuing me from the sea, which is the rug, in the quest to know what is it to rescue someone and care for them. I have 3 keys here. This is the first one, and the second one, and the third one. And they're all on a hook in our kitchen, and they're all really similar. Maybe they're like our questions. Some are really close, but they don't open the door. And so I wonder for me, with all the questions embedded in my life and in my activity, which one opens the door to my heart? Which question for you is the key to opening something up? And perhaps the way to explore that is to keep taking the backward step, as Dogen said, to explore that beautiful mind you've been given, to just keep exploring it. T.S. Eliot said, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started, to know the place for the first time." To know the place for the first time. And so I'm really curious today to explore with you what are some of the questions, or the questions that are on top of questions. How does this land with you as you think about your own mind and your own questions? Thank you very much.
Josh, perhaps I could add a little bit, fill out about our conversation beforehand a bit, if that would be okay.
Please do.
Okay, and then I might get a chance to try my bell again.
Great.
See if it's working. Um, I love that you're speaking to this. We just finished an intensive here, and my experience of it felt, and I've been really struggling with how to put it to words, but it just felt like in the space of Zazen, it's big enough to hold everything.
Yeah.
It's the one space big enough to hold everything,
Yeah.
all my questions.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and that's just deeply, it's a felt sense right now. It's deeply in me, and it feels a little bit like that's what I was relating to when you were saying a teacher only teaches a couple of things. It's uh, if I can find ways to somehow convey that, that feels useful.
Mm. Yeah, I think it can sound like minimal, but actually each of those things that a student or a teacher explores feels really deep. Um, and so it feels something for me about knowing where you place your heart, you what you're really drawn to, and to express it in that way. Does
Yeah.
that kind of resonate with what you're expressing?
Yes, and I felt an opening in my heart as you said that. I felt seen.
Mm,
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
yeah. Mm.
And now I'd just like to try this to see if you guys can hear it.
Mm.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Same settings. All
We have a
right.
bell. All is well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Cassie.
Hey, Joshy,
Hi.
be with you.
Hmm.
Um, I thought I had a clearer expression, and now all of them are just whizzing by.
Hmm.
Uh, but one of them, like, the one of the ways that I'm constantly attuning
Hmm.
is uh, is what I'm engaging with, what I'm about to offer with somebody, with the conversation or whatnot. Um, is what I'm about to say coming from judgment, or is it what I'm about to say coming from compassion? Like, where is the birthplace of the thought, the interaction, whatnot? And I try to keep the judgment parts to myself,
Hmm.
and sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. But the judgment parts seem to have like a lot of energy, a lot of anxiety, a lot of juice.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the compassion part seems to have a lot of vastness to it.
Yeah.
But I guess the judgment part, like, is so habitualized in me that it offers itself first. It like gets to the starting gate
Mhm.
first.
Hmm.
Um, and your the I guess the Suzuki Roshi quote of how do we allow our question to find us?
Hmm.
I hadn't heard that before, and I wrote it down, and I was just like, that's something, you
Hmm.
know. And uh, I kind of wanted to put it like I'd love to know your response of how do we allow our question to find us.
Okay, so Suzuki Roshi said, "What is your inmost request?" And the uh, how do we allow our question to find us was one I just came up with for the talk. So it felt to cover some of what I was talking about. Um, so can you repeat your question again?
What uh, um, how do you
Hmm.
allow your question to find you?
Okay. Um, I think it's something embedded in how we are. So maybe how we are expresses our question. That's kind of so I'm curious about how embedded the question is, even if it's not stated.
Mm-hmm.
So I stay true to what I'm interested in, what my quest, what I what to begin with, what is a question I can start to ask,
Mm-hmm.
even if underneath it there are deeper and deeper questions. And I think for me, because I had a childhood where um, kind of knowing what I felt about things was sometimes difficult to access, I I want to practice knowing knowing what I'm drawn to, being very clear, so I don't get distracted by what I ought to be drawn to.
Uh,
So, there's the bit about when I was thinking, I should come up with something really fresh today and a different. It's like that's the ought bit, but actually, I'm not really interested in that. So I have to take care I don't, kind of go down that route, and and
and
and having faith that your question is right out there. It's there. Um,
And there's that um, I I came across this with the clearness committee that Appamada has, and the uh, Quaker group kind of thought that your inmost part actually does know. And that if you can get, if you actually do keep asking the question this way, like that there is something in there that will respond eventually, and give what fits for you. And I find it so interesting that we're so ingrained to look outward for what's inward.
Yeah. It's the backward step, isn't it?
Yeah.
To kind of taking care of your own being, your own mind. And when you describe the critical judgmental part, it's like how do you take care of that?
Oh, without being judgmental about that.
Yeah, without being judgmental about that. It's like maybe when you take some children around, and it's like there's one who's really judgmental, and you flow with that, you work with that. And you be as skilled as you can with that, whilst knowing it probably has a function.
Yeah, and so as I'm thinking about the function, like the function might be a protection.
Yeah.
Because if I know things, then I'm safe.
Yes. I like the stance there. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of taking it around with you, and seeing how you can, I guess, reduce the suffering around it, because it comes with the compassion that you speak about. I guess, when you were asking the original question, I'm thinking playful. How do I, it's like I don't want to kind of frighten it away by being too serious, the question.
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of make it feel it can come and sit beside me. So maybe we need to have some adopt some playfulness in our practice, some humor. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Denise.
Hi, Denise.
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
So when I hear what is my innermost question, there is like parts of helplessness, my goodness, do I have an innermost question? And would this innermost question provoke an innermost answer? And it's like an impossibility. I feel the impossibility of having an innermost question. Because as soon as I try to put it into words, it's like an innermost question. It's ungraspable in a way.
So, what if you think about the paintings? You can kind of see what the artist's questions are. Their interest in light or a particular way of expressing themselves. So maybe, we can really frighten our questions away if we kind of get too busy with them. So maybe it's kind of looking at your how you what interests you, what are you curious about, um, kind of maybe yeah, taking some time to not, it's a mystery as well.
Yeah.
You're with the mystery.
Yeah. I feel it's something so intimate
Yeah.
that, and so not fragile, but so um,
Tender.
tender, and I can perceive it more in my body than in words.
Hmm.
Or it's like a being there-ness.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very tender.
Yeah. So there's something it feels like it's uncovered from, as the conversation's gone on, you've tenderized,
Yeah.
you know. How does that feel?
um, okay, I'm conscious that I'm taking off time. But it feels, I, I think I can't put it in words, but
Hmm. Hmm.
it's like about this being a life thing.
Hmm. Hmm. So something is just moving through you as a result of your inquiry.
Mm.
Sometimes that's just enough for one day. It's yeah, it's it's a precious thing just to explore it.
Mm. And in a way, welcome it.
And welcome it.
Mm.
Right? It's a process, not a destination.
Yes.
Um, it's a process of being with. Um, and when I was talking to Cassie about, playful kind, um, with others, hmm,
With myself.
with yourself, yeah, cherish it. Hmm.
Thank you,
Thank
Josh.
you. Thank you.
Mike and Sue.
Hi, Mike and Sue.
Hi, this is first time for me to interact with you, Josh, and
Mm,
I wanted to say thank you.
mm,
Um, your presence in helps me slow down, and I have loved the offerings so far, especially Cassie calling you Joshy.
yeah.
You're speaking of the playful,
Yeah.
and you know, any time I'm posed with a question, my brain goes right to what's the right answer?
Mm,
What's the most absolute answer?
mm,
And I tend to want to freeze frame everything,
mm,
get it just right, and then it's going to be that way forever.
mm,
And that's sort of the way my mind works until I remind it that life is not like that.
mm,
I could not help but hear the word unburdened,
mm,
although it wasn't said. But that's what comes up for me when I've experienced the first three shares
mm,
and your share, that I can relax into a different way of being and breathing and seeing. And it's a deliberate
mm,
and that's what Zazen does for me.
mm,
And then if I'm fortunate during my day, when all of the stuff comes flying in and flying around,
mm,
I can say, I'm going to give that stuff 2 minutes and then
mm,
put it away. But mostly it's the idea of presence, um, sitting with this family
mm,
and feeling your peaceful energy and your very compelling thoughtfulness.
mm.
And so for that, I want to say thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's really great to meet you. Um, I've seen you so many times on the screen, so it's lovely to eventually meet you. And your sharing is really beautiful and really powerful. Um, and I really, respect that kind of wanting to kind of get the question right or get it perfect. And I think it's something everybody here has to some extent, So I think you're speaking for everyone. And it's kind of lovely to hear you talk about then moving into a bigger space where
Yeah.
there's less suffering in it. Um,
Yeah. And that's what I can bring to others
hmm.
without making it a deliberate effort to bring it to others.
Yes, yes, just through your presence,
Yeah. Yeah. Through
and
our. Mm.
because you know how difficult it can be, to kind of move to a place where there's some ease.
Yeah.
It, it
Yeah.
makes it possible to help others.
Yeah. Yeah. And interesting, what's bubbling up for me as we talk is that I have this phrase about getting out of my own way.
Mm,
Sometimes I don't realize that my mind will block me
mm,
from the presence of others, and I set expectations which block me.
yeah.
Um, and the concept of making friends with my parts
Mm,
or making friends with my burdens,
mm,
or as a friend of mine likes to say, when I'm confronting a lot of heavy things, is
mm,
sometimes I get to say, let it be.
yeah.
Yes, let it be.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, I'm so grateful for you, for this
Oh,
group.
well, I'm so grateful for you and the group, and it's really great to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
I hope we meet again. Thank you.
Yes,
Mm,
we'll look you up when we come over.
do.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy.
Thank you, Jessica. And hi, Josh. And first of all, I want to thank you so much for your offering and for sharing yourself with us today. And I have a couple things now. Let's see, Denise said to welcome our inmost request. I think that's what she was referring to. I was reminded that sometimes when I say welcome, I break it down to welcome,
Yes.
welcome. That
Yeah.
request, welcome. I'm open to it, and I like the spirit of that.
Mm,
Um, but I wanted to ask you a question because I think you said when you were talking about how we kind of stay with the teaching, and
mm.
I wrote it down. We find new ways to Did you say we find new ways to describe the state?
I think we find new ways to express something if we stay with it, if there's something that really draws us.
Okay.
So we have new ways to, like I was talking about, I mean, I'm not musical, but I was talking about that interview about
Yeah.
Beethoven,
Right.
how he was fascinated with certain things and he kind of stayed with them until he'd kind of explored them enough and then he knew when to move on. So,
Right. I think at one point you did say we find new ways to describe the state, but what I heard
yeah.
was we find new ways to describe the taste.
Yes. Yes,
And
that's right. Yeah.
did you say that?
I'd quoted it from
Okay,
Cohen
okay.
Franz. So what he was saying is that um, most teachers, most students have certain preoccupations and things they love to explore. That's what they're
Uh-huh.
called to, and they have they're describing the taste, the
Yeah,
taste of practice. So it's embodied.
I love that because it's embodied. I was just going to say
Yeah,
that.
you get a taste of it. And I remember Flynn
Yeah,
once saying he went into a temple, um, and he said the abbot was saying goodbye, and I think the abbot said something like, um, you get a taste of my mind. So you get a
Right,
flavor. You don't get
right,
you get something in terms of a flavor. I
right.
think
And
that's
it's complex and it changes. And
yeah,
so I just love that
yeah,
image and that feeling of
yeah,
getting a taste of something. So thank
yeah.
you.
And so we
Thank
taste
you.
all the time. We're tasting life, and in practice, we're
Hmm.
tasting the Dharma. And so
Hmm.
it's not something sometimes we can describe terribly well, but we know what it is.
Right. And I think sometimes we get a taste of that inmost request, which is
Yes.
also a question
Mm.
and which is also a quest. And it's all, the same root, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
but it has different flavors, as you say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank you.
pointing to that. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, Kathy. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Josh.
So I think we're coming up towards the end of our time together today. Um, so let's say the four practice principles together, please. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you, Jessica. Um, thank you. It's wonderful to be part of this inquiry community, and I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time. And thank you so much, Jessica, for holding the space for this to happen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you for talking with us today about the one taste of the ocean. Thank you, everyone, for what you've brought. Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity, and your support makes a huge difference. I'm placing a link for your contributions in the chat, and I also placed one for Just This Zen, where Josh and Trudy are. Please do indicate if you'd like it to go to a specific teacher. And now, if you'd like to hang out on the porch while you put on your shoes and say goodbye to others, please feel free to stick around. Cassie will be taking good care of you there. Thank you all.